I've had a great life. I've settled $4.125 million with Diddy. Okay, but he's scared that I was going to expose him.
I don't want to talk about Diddy right now. I want to talk about you. Help me.
Something crazy is happening behind the scenes of the Diddy scandal. And now, one of his most unexpected connections is being dragged into the spotlight. Jonathan Oddi, the man once dismissed as just another conspiracy theorist, may actually be the missing piece to a much bigger, far more dangerous puzzle.
Do you know Sean Combs?
Puff Daddy?
Yeah.
P. Diddy, whatever he calls himself these days. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, he's part of what's called the Boule. The Boule is a branch of the Illuminati.
Okay.
It's the black people.
An explosive NDA he allegedly signed with Diddy has just leaked. But here's the twist, it's not just about Diddy. Oddi claims he knows exactly who's protecting him, and why. And get this, it seems like he's been paying the price for holding on to that information all these years. We're talking hundreds of subpoenas, unexplained extensions, and deliberately bad legal advice. Jonathan Oddi has been left to rot in prison, while the truth stayed buried in the shadows.
Do you know the status of his case?
It's been pending for literally 7 years, since 2018.
There are only a few people in Hollywood who hold that kind of power, and that's exactly why fans believe Jonathan is on the radar of the wrong men. Why are these powerful people so desperate to shut him up? Who is he exposing? And why is his case being quietly buried, while no one's paying attention? Let's find out. A couple of years ago, when Jonathan sat down with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, he said this.
I've had a great life. I've settled $4.125 million with Diddy. Okay, but he's scared that I was going to expose him.
I don't want to talk about Diddy right now. I want to talk about you. Help me understand.
Now, this comment may have been swept under the rug. But for those who were really paying attention to everything Oddi revealed in that interrogation room, one thing was clear. He was hinting at an NDA with Diddy. And guess what? It turns out those speculations were spot on. A photo of an NDA, allegedly signed by Jonathan Oddi and Sean Combs in Miami back in 2014, just leaked online. The document clearly shows Diddy's signature, right alongside Oddi's, adding a whole new layer of authenticity to his explosive claims. But that's not all. Oddi's ex-wife of 6 years, Tia Troutwine, is now stepping up to confirm the allegations made by her former husband. According to her, the NDA was signed right around the time of their divorce. The date of that contract was around the same time as our divorce. I almost feel like he divorced me because he came into all this money and didn't want me to claim any of it. But honestly, our lives were already going in different directions. I started feeling like a third wheel in someone else's life, rather than a wife. Of course, learning the truth about what really happened years later shook Tonya to her core. But deep down, she always knew one thing. Jonathan was never going to live a quiet life. He was always destined to be in the spotlight.
When I met Johnny, he was a local celebrity in Miami. He danced for the local Spanish telenovelas. He's fluent in Portuguese, Cuban slang. So I knew when I married Johnny, he's a performer. That's not me. He's an exhibitionist. He loves people. He loves being in the limelight. So the fact that he somehow entered the limelight is not a surprise to me. That is not the shocking part.
However, she never imagined his rise to the spotlight would come because of something like this. Not scandal, not betrayal, not the kind of darkness you can't wash off. He's now known, not as a whistleblower, not even as a victim, but as the former worker who was treated like Diddy's slave. And for Tonya, that title alone was horrifying. But what truly shook her wasn't just the story or the scandal. It was the side of Jonathan she never expected to face. She never thought he'd become violent.
The way it happened is extremely shocking to me, extremely disheartening. Very kind of anti-violence. So for him to enter kind of the mainstream public arena in a violent way was very heartening and very sad, very angry and sad.
Fans are now starting to believe that Jonathan's close contact with Diddy may have done more than just drag him into a scandal. It might have messed him up for good. And sadly, all signs point to that being true. Because up until a certain point, Tonya and Jonathan had what seemed like the perfect relationship.
He helped me out of relationship. He was the guy, and I think that's why I tolerated a lot of, our differences in our professional lives, because he was so, I never worried ever. I had complete freedom with him to go on the beach, to work, to meet colleagues. He wasn't controlling, he wasn't in any way. And he was a lot of fun to be around. You always felt safe. He was someone that lit up a room when he walked in. He was a simple guy. He was never flashy or overdressed or anything. But him and I could literally walk into a coffee shop and everyone's head would turn. He was just that striking of a personality.
She also said this 100% gives a lot of truth and legitimacy to everything he was saying. Johnny was a smart guy. He would have picked up on things. And the fact that P. Diddy actually signed an agreement with him, instead of just writing him off, tells me one thing: P. Diddy had some level of respect for him. Mind you, Diddy paid Jonathan $5 million to keep quiet. Now, for anyone wondering why Diddy would waste that much money on a guy like Jonathan, it's because he wasn't just some random nobody. The world knew him as the man arrested in 2018 after he was reportedly caught on camera, carrying a US flag, ranting about the president as he stormed into the lobby of the Trump National Doral Golf Club, before ending up in a shootout with cops. But the real problem wasn't that incident. It was what Jonathan knew. Secrets, dark, dangerous secrets about Diddy's empire. And here's the kicker: he spilled it all during interrogation, long before any of the current accusations against Diddy even surfaced. So, how did Jonathan get his hands on all this explosive information? Simple. Jonathan had 15 encounters with Diddy and Cassie. And every single time he was in the room with them, he kept his ears wide open.
I had with Cassie and Sean. Basically, he would tell me what to do with Cassie. I had like 15 encounters, and I heard lots of business. Because what they would do is Sean talks a lot on the. Do you know Sean Combs?
Puff Daddy?
Yeah.
P. Diddy, whatever you call himself these days. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, he's part of what's called the Boule. The Boule is a branch of the Illuminati.
Okay.
It's the black people. Happens to follow. The hip-hop agenda is an agenda to move drugs all over the United States. You need to involve the DEA. They move all the dope, on private jets, which don't get screened by
customs,
by DEA, inside the United States. Okay, they move what's called high-grade powder MDMA. They move and they move liquid.
Jonathan overheard some truly disturbing things during those encounters. According to him, Diddy wasn't just a music mogul. He was allegedly part of a secret branch of the Illuminati called the Boule, a shadowy group that preyed on young artists and participated in unnerving rituals that few dare to speak about.
Have not called me, consulted with me, talked to me in any way.
Do you know the status of his case?
It's been pending for literally 7 years, since 2018. I have followed other cases of his current attorney, and it does seem he kind of, lets things kind of play out on their own. There haven't been any filing.
He also claimed they performed satanic rituals, which, according to Jonathan, are basically CIA mind control programming techniques, used on their own families, kids, and others within the group. And that's how they bond. Okay, it gets worse. Jonathan says they conduct animal sacrifices, the kind you hear about at places like Bohemian Grove.
I believe Johnny to be a victim, and I think, victims should speak out. I'm just really concerned that it's been so many years and he hasn't really had an opportunity to speak out.
Keep in mind, Jonathan made these explosive claims back in 2018, long before anyone had any idea about the kind of creepy, shadowy dealings Diddy was allegedly involved in. Naturally, it makes...
I looked at the docket, and it looks like this case has just been being pushed off and pushed off and pushed off for literally years.
Hundreds of subpoenas, not to mention the hearing that she attended was labeled as a plea.
Perfect sense why Diddy made him sign that NDA. He couldn't afford to have Oddi be the first person to unravel his empire. But here's where things take a truly disturbing turn. Jonathan didn't just implicate Diddy. He exposed a chilling ring of powerful people working.
Camera is not set up in the courtroom, so you can't see in the courtroom. You could only see her, the judge, and there was like this one judicial assistant you could see. So you couldn't see her, if Jonathan Oddi was there or not.
And well, it's a lucrative business, one that's made the wrong kinds of people dangerously rich. And that's exactly why Jonathan's claims were buried. See, if his allegations had hit the mainstream media all those years ago, it wouldn't have just been bad news for Diddy, it would have been game over for the powerful higher-ups backing him. So, the story was buried. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Jonathan was first arrested back in 2018. As of 2025, that's almost 7 years since the feds took him. You'd think his case would have made some progress in all that time. But no. Instead, he's been locked in a cell, left to rot away in silence, where no one can hear his story.
I'm paraphrasing, but she's like, does anybody have any notes? Anybody have anything? Anybody have anything to report? It's just kind of like one of those moments, right? No, they did not. Nobody did. Crickets. And she said she would continue to pass on that case.
She tried to raise her voice for Jonathan, but all she got were excuses after excuses. At one point, his lawyers even played the pandemic card to stall the process. But TA wasn't buying it. She believed they could have filed petitions to speed things up. It's exactly what she would have done if she were in their place.
This goes by. That was at 9:54. She turned it off. And at 9:57, she was still off the record. By 9:58, she's back and she called the next case. So she didn't announce anything. She didn't say, all right, Jonathan Oddi is rescheduled to November 11th. Or, none, like, she just came back on her. All right, I'm going to call case number. And it's like.
And get this, by bringing his case to a halt, the higher-ups weren't just silencing him. They were stealing his peace of mind. How did that help them? Simple. By painting Oddi as insane, they stripped away his credibility. And it seems like their strategy worked. Because even Jonathan's own wife said she was worried about him. He's been sitting in a jail cell all this time, with no chance to tell his story. Interview. And it doesn't look like Jonathan's wife is messing around. Because YouTuber BJ Investigates actually went to one of Oddi's hearings, and what she witnessed left her shocked by the sheer injustice. For starters, just like Tonya said, the case was being deliberately pushed aside and delayed. Interview. And then she uncovered hundreds of subpoenas, piling up like evidence of a case being dragged out. What's more alarming? The hearing she attended was suddenly labeled a plea hearing. Why does that matter? Because just a month earlier, they were calling it a trial hearing or a status hearing. So, why the sudden change? What exactly could Jonathan possibly plead to? And speaking of Jonathan, there was no way anyone could even tell if he was really in that courtroom because of how the camera was deliberately set up. Interview. Indy, get this. When it was finally time for Oddi's case to be heard, the judge passed on the case because of some technicality the YouTuber couldn't even figure out. The second time Jonathan's name was called, nothing changed. The case was pushed aside again. Interview. The case was called a third time, and guess what happened? Someone from Oddi's own team told the judge his lawyer wasn't there, so the hearing couldn't move forward. Just like that, Jonathan was sent back to rot in a prison cell. The whole situation was super shady. That same team member even called for a sidebar, and the judge went off the record. Word is, he asked for an extension, which makes zero sense, considering this case has been dragged out for years already. Interview. And while fans believe BJ Investigates uncovered something huge, one glaring question remains. Where is Jonathan Oddi? Since that 2018 interrogation, he hasn't been seen in court. BJ Investigates combed through every legal site but found Jonathan is completely untraceable. No one can figure out where he's being held. Documents contradict each other, full of discrepancies, and shockingly, he's even been listed as dead. Think about that. Who has the power to pull moves like this? It's obviously someone way high up in the food chain. That's why fans are convinced Jonathan has made the worst enemies possible. These powerful figures have been actively trying to silence his voice, so the truth never reaches the public. But despite all the obstacles in his path, Jonathan is still committed to getting his story out. With Diddy's trial now underway, fans discovered prosecutors have added someone called Victim 5 to the witness list. The defense fought hard to keep this witness's testimony out of trial, but Judge